All I'm saying is Valve was making $3.5 million per employee profit. So what we're asking for is, hey Steam, what if you just made less per employee? And in
I'm
the
saying
long
you
run,
might not even make less in the long run.
Yeah.
well, in the long run, it might pay off. But in the short run, it definitely won't. Because in the short run, you'll definitely just have less money, Valve.
Mhm.
So would you do that on faith,
Butterscotch.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 539 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, the miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam, and I'm the artiste.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today's September 18th, 2020 vibes. Before we get started, we have a warning. There's going to be profanity in this show. We'd also like to thank our recurring supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. Thank you so much for your monthly donations that help keep this podcast going. So we are barreling towards several big events in the studio that we want to talk about because they're coming. Okay. So we've got the day after this episode goes live.
What day is that?
That'll be, well, the day this episode goes live will be September 24th. The day after it will be September 25th.
Yep.
That was a hard question to answer based on how I,
Whoops.
So Crashlands 2 update 1.3 will be coming out on September 25th on Thursday. And then just a couple days later on Saturday the 27th, Levelhead will be going on a super steep
The steepest
discount. So we're going to have a trailer for update 1.3 and a blog post, and it's going to be crazy. We've been playing through it a whole bunch, and it really feels like it has just cinched the game up.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
anything that kind of felt like, it would be nice if this was if there's more of this, or if this was a little bit better, if this was deeper. It just kind of just pulled the
got
whole thing together. It's like the rug from The Big Lebowski. That's what this update is. It just
pulls it all together.
it ties the room together. So definitely look for that. We'll have lots of marketing content and stuff.
And if you've been waiting to play Crashlands 2 because you're like, I want to wait until it's, done, right?
It feels pretty done.
This is this is also this is the last planned update for the foreseeable future. So this is it truly feels like we got there.
Yeah.
We
As
got
far as
all the
major content updates.
Yeah, major
right?
content.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've been waiting to get in there because you wanted to make sure it was, in its final state before you played it, this is it. 1.3 marks that moment. It doesn't mean we won't make some changes in the future or add some stuff in the future. Who knows? But we don't have any plans anymore after 1.3. So this is now the time. There's nothing else to wait for. Just hop right in there. It's
now
good.
or later. That's
now or later. Yep.
uh,
Not never though. You got to get in there.
you gotta get it at some point. So that's we're very excited about that. And the more interesting kind of thing has actually been Levelhead lately, weirdly. Not necessarily more interesting, but more interesting to think about from our end. Because we've been working on Crashlands 2 for years and years and years. And Levelhead, which we launched back in 2020, has been just kind of chilling. We have a great Levelhead community still of these people who are just every day they're just going nuts, making the coolest stuff, speed running. We've got people in the Levelhead community who have thousands and thousands and thousands of followers in Levelhead. So whenever they publish a level, those people all get notified of hey, this person published a level. So the community's just there and just kind of doing stuff. And coming up on this sale, we've had to think about okay, how do we capitalize on this? We're treating this sale as our one big shot to try to make something happen. This is us poking Levelhead with a stick and being like, come on,
Do something.
Do something. We have a sense that price has been an issue for the game, just based on kind of how it responds to sales and discounts and stuff. And so we're gonna see what this does, because this is going to be really steep. But also we're reaching out to influencers. We're reaching out to press. We're even putting together a little pitch video for them to be
specifically. It's not a trailer. It's basically saying, look, we made a game that's better than Mario Maker. 5 years ago, and we're gonna relaunch it again. And so there's gonna be a lot of people.
Relaunching it is
Yeah.
how we're framing it.
Yeah. So get in there and make some stuff, you know. And I think what's interesting is like if you step through like Levelhead on a high level from a game dev like business standpoint, it's just such a weird case where it's like it technically did well for us as a studio, but that's largely because of the deals we made with platforms ahead of time. So we had Xbox Game Pass, we had a Google Play Pass involved, and so we were fine in terms of like ROI, recovering our stuff. But in terms of just it paid for itself. But in terms of just like moment to moment, day to day sales, it's like 1/10 of Crashlands or something like that. It's a ridiculous thing. But then if you dig into it further, it just gets more confusing. Okay, because like refund rate basically the same as something like Crashlands. So it's not like people are buying it and they're like, this is garbage. It is higher actually than any of our other games, right? The highest reviewed game we have. And then
also wishlist conversion rate is the highest of any of our games.
And then on top of that,
by a high, by like literally 2x.
Yeah, and then click through to the store page itself, kind of the same as the other games. So it's like it's not like people aren't clicking on it, or if they buy it or upset. It's like there's something in there, and so that's where this idea came out. Maybe it is just kind of like a social graph game where you kind of need all your friends to be playing it in some ways in order for you to get the most out of it, right? Or just like a lot of people playing it is the best. Then like maybe
it just needs to be cheap.
Well, that's the thing. I think it is a network effect problem, because what we found, and we've talked about this in the past, of how hard it is to get streamers and YouTubers to play something that is competing with something that already has a streaming community, and it's the algorithm. The algorithm's gonna get you. We contacted so many Mario Maker streamers and YouTubers. Most of them did pick up Levelhead and play it. And then we would get messages from them being like, oh my God, I wish I could play this on my channel instead.
Mm-hmm. But I'm trapped.
If I stop making Mario Maker content, YouTube stops showing my videos to my audience, because my audience watches Mario Maker videos, and that's it, right?
And one of those biggest YouTubers who plays Mario Maker games. We were looking into all these people over the past few days while we were thinking about how to approach all this, So Ryu Cars, he played some Levelhead back. We did a promo streams with him back in the day, but we went back and looked at his YouTube channel, and he's still literally every day, every
few days, he's got 100,000 views on a new video,
on a new Mario Maker video.
Yeah, because the thing is,
5 years later,
in a game like this, there's infinite content. Like Levelhead, despite I was talking about how like it just didn't get the traction, it has like 200. It has like 250,000 levels in it.
Yeah.
And as we were putting together some of the marketing materials for this promo, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit, as we're putting together some of these marketing materials, I was like, I need some levels to play to get video of for these different things. And so I just popped into the tower, which is where levels go in Levelhead, to be searchable and to be surfaced and stuff like that. And I could basically just click it at random on levels in the tower, and they're just bangers. They're just good. That's because Levelhead has we have the marketing department feature, which is when people make a new level, that level goes into the marketing department, where it's like, that's where all the new stuff is. We don't know if it's easy. We don't know if it's hard. We don't know what the completion rate is.
Holding pen for new content, basically, for our algorithms to figure out what's going on with it.
Actually, in a way, it's kind of like how I think like TikTok does this. Like you make a new video, and then they kind of test run it.
Yeah, you sample it.
They sample it, and they show it. They definitely show it to some certain number of people, and then based on how it, like what kind of traction it gets, what kind of engagement it gets from different groups, it either says like, actually this is garbage, we'll just kind of not show it to anybody, or it says there's this one group of people who really likes it, we're going to do another test run and move it to another phase and show it to more of those types of people. This is how you get the extremist pipeline, right? Yep. Like, yeah, it works great.
Yep,
it's effective.
Levelhead, unfortunately, we aren't able to create extremists. We're not that good at the algorithm at this point, but we are able to show really good levels and figure out.
Part of it is because we also took it one step further, right? Because the problem that you have with discovery in something like TikTok or YouTube, I mean anything, right, is that somebody makes some content and puts it up, and then the system has to figure out how do I show enough? How do I like make sure I show things to people to discover if it's worth showing to other people? Which means you have to show it to somebody first, right? You have to
You
do
basically
that.
have this chicken and egg problem. It's the same problem you have in
Yeah.
games, right? It's like we're trying to get press attention before a game comes out. It's the same issue, which like press want to write about something after it is popular because that's when it's good for them to write about it. But
Also,
Well, it's also because you're overwhelmed.
They don't want to play bad games either. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Like,
You got no time.
And most games are bad. Most content is bad, right? And also the bad content overwhelms the good content because it's so cheap to make shitty content, especially in the days of LLMs and generative AI, right? And so you have this increase. There's this battle basically between the system wanting to be like, is this good? I need to show it to people to find out if it's good. And if I have to show everything to people and most of it's bad, then I create a bad experience on average for people, right? And so trying to find out how to do that is a huge struggle. We have a huge advantage with Levelhead because it's a creator. It's about making and playing levels, right? And so we can create this symbiosis where we can basically say, like, because the whole idea of like content slop, right, is low effort. That's its whole thing. So the marketing department is also an effort filter because it says if you're not willing to go engage with the community, because that's what this is actually about, right, and play other people's levels, then you also can't get your level to surface.
Right. Well, and that's the final kind of linchpin of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is like the marketing department allows us to accrue information about the level so that when it graduates from the marketing department to the tower, it can be surfaced in the right way.
But only those levels people invest time into.
Right.
Yes.
Because in Levelhead, you get to the top of the marketing department by putting exposure bucks into your level, and you only get exposure bucks by playing other people's levels. And you gain exposure bucks at a faster rate in the marketing department than anywhere else. So it's basically like this just churn, and like stuff, once something gets to the top of the marketing department, I think it has to get 50 unique players, and then it graduates and it's gone. And then it just goes into the tower, right?
Yeah.
And so people will make low effort levels. They'll just like make some garbage thing. They'll beat it in 2 seconds. They'll throw it to the marketing department, and then they'll see that in order to actually get people to play their level, they're going to have to play a bunch of other people's levels and then invest those exposure bucks back into this low effort piece of crap that they made. And so they just don't.
Yeah, it really keeps
And
trash
even if
out.
they do, they can't spend the time to keep doing that, right?
Yeah.
So that you don't have this infinite generation, like one person generates infinite slop and feeds out of the system, and everybody just only sees that.
Well, you
right?
do have people doing that, but they don't go to the top of the marketing department. They just stay at the bottom and you never see them, which is perfect, right? And so what you have then is like the tower is just full of levels that the creator is proud of, right? It's somebody who said, I made this good thing and I want to put time into making sure that it gets played. And then we also have this mechanism where like people can bypass the system because you can get followers in Levelhead. So if you see somebody making levels and you really like what they're making, you can follow them. And we have this little sort of like notifications area, which it doesn't like push notifications to your device. It's just inside the game. So whenever somebody you're following makes a new level, the little notification thing pops up. You can go in there, you can see the level, and you can just play it. So like I mentioned before, we have some people in Levelhead who have thousands of followers, which is still insane to me. Thousands of followers, and so when they make a level, they don't have to go to the marketing department anymore.
Yeah, it's like
they've proven themselves.
Once you get really good at making levels, then you just don't have to. You've proven your own credibility as a person, so you don't have to go do the climb up to the marketing department to get all this stuff working, right? Which is great. So you got this nice exit ramp for people who are doing good. You got this, never-ending abyss for people who don't care very much. Great, also, and then you have all these auto sorting mechanisms for people to find stuff, and it's just dope.
Yeah. And we have the reason we're kind of talking through this is because like I forgot how much good shit we put in this game. Like this game is so good. The gameplay is really good, but the meta systems around it, like man, we just thought through everything.
Well, I mean, we set out to solve the problems that we were dealing with as people who make and sell video games for a living, right? Because the problem with our industry is that there isn't a way. There's not a thing you can do to be like, hey, I invested all this time into this thing that I made. There's just a thing I can do that makes it so that people see it, like proportional to the effort I put into it, sort of a thing, right? There's nothing you can do to then cause it to be successful. There's nothing there. All you can do is make the thing, and then you do a whole bunch of gambling on trying to get people to see it. And that was the thing we set out with user-generated content games. We're like, this is the same problem. This is the exact same problem that we face as people trying to make entertainment content for a living. We have to solve this in here, right? And so we thought of every single thing that makes it impossible for us to do what we're doing and guarantee success making and selling video games, and solved every piece of that, at least within the context.
Little tiny microcosm.
Yeah. Because we even have stuff like in the tower, the default sorting mechanism is featured, because you can say like sort by most played or sort by difficulty or whatever, right? But we have this special featured section which just looks for levels that have a lot of engagement per unique player. As in, like, when people play it, they tend to beat it. It might be, you can also kind of filter by difficulty and stuff like that. But the featured section is for levels that are basically underrated.
Yeah.
Like levels that seem like they're good and people are playing them quite a bit, but not that many people have played them. And so the featured section is just like a constant churn of like stuff you probably haven't seen. Right. And so we have all these cool metrics, and that's not even including like the tower trial and the daily build and like just all this stuff.
Well, the reason we're coming face to face with it again is because, Seth's been putting together some additional marketing shorts for Levelhead to support like around this daily deal window to see what those will do, which has been just like an interesting experience. The switch from working on trailers to working on shorts, I think it kind of lets us just do weird shit again in a way, because like every one of them doesn't have to be so high investment. And also because they just show up for people. It's not a thing you have to search for, right? Because it just shows up, then like you don't have to also play that game of trying to make like the most epic video game trailer ever,
You're not,
like on this
you're not playing SEO games. You're just like, make something that just kind of is interesting.
Yeah.
And then YouTube will show it to people, or TikTok or whatever. And like we were just talking about, if it's got hooks, it'll keep going. And if not, then it won't. And then that's okay. You've got more of them. Yeah. So you can roll the dice a lot of times. And so I've been just kind of combing through the game, and I have this giant list now of like, man, I can make videos about everything in this game, because everything in here is just like, there's just some kind of cool nugget of like, did you know that this is how this works? And that it's a unique thing that you just don't see in other games. So yeah, I mean, every time, every time I dip into Levelhead, I'm just like,
come on,
I still believe in this. I still believe in this game. Like it's just so good. And I try to be somewhat objective and try to be humble about the things that I make and do. But I mean, Levelhead is just good.
It's good.
I can't kind of downplay it. It's just good.
It's objectively good. That's just the truth.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been fun making all the short videos, and we'll be just rolling those out over the course of the discount period. So just more ways to try to draw people in. All right. Well, you guys want to get into some questions?
You know what?
Yeah.
All right. I wasn't sure, Sam, if you said you know it or you know what.
So I was waiting.
You know what?
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right. So these questions come from our listeners over at podcast.bsketch.net. So if you want to ask a question, you can head on over there and do so. And I mentioned last week that we are also reading all the YouTube comments. And so if you drop comments in our YouTube channel, if we get a good question in there, we may scoop it up and answer it. So the highest upvoted question of today comes from Star Whip Cobblebeep, who says,
That's a good one.
He says, if y'all were ever tight for cash, would you consider implementing 100% optional microtransactions for cosmetics and the like? For example, someone could pay $1 for a rare Crashlands 2 hat that is also craftable in-game.
Like the answer here is no, for two reasons. One is, for that to actually give enough revenue for it to be helpful, we would have to already be making enough revenue off of the game that
'Cause we sell the
proportionally,
game.
because we
Yeah.
sell the game, that proportionally that would add up to enough to save us, and they couldn't. So practically speaking, it wouldn't help, so it wouldn't be worth the effort. The other thing is that there's no such thing as optional content for the way that players interpret
in the
stuff.
mindscape
In the
of a
mind
player.
of a player.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there's not a way for them to access something, unless something else happens, right? Unless they have another game, unless they buy something, unless whatever, right? Then it is perceived as stuff that you have unfairly locked away from them,
Yes.
and unreasonably and unfairly, and you have now made yourself the enemy. So, so unfortunately, and there are some exceptions to this. If depending on the kind of game it is, if it's a free to play game and it's cosmetic stuff, then people are used to the idea that somehow this has to get paid for. So, and it's just cosmetic, so it's fine. If it's something that they've paid for already, then even if it is cosmetic, if it's a live service game, again, people kind of get that. They understand, hey, this has recurring costs to run because it's got multiplayer servers and blah, blah, blah. But if you're running a single player game and then you have something that people can pay for inside of it, you're already at risk of people just hating that so much. And if it's cosmetic, and if you have an audience who really likes you as a developer, and they see you as like one of them, they see you as an indie, they don't see you as like a big AAA, right? Then you might be able to pull it off. But the risk is really high of that backfiring enormously.
Yeah, I think if you're strapped for cash, generally speaking, putting microtransactions into your premium games is going to only backfire and make your cash pile less than it already is. Like it's not.
Yeah, well, and the upside isn't much, right? Because like you might
Correct,
add a small percentage of what you're already making, but if you're in trouble, a small percentage of what you're already making is never going to help. You're needing some big infusion of cash or a
being
multiplier.
strapped for cash isn't like we only need 3% more profit.
Yep.
It's like we're in trouble. Yeah, we need like all of the money. Yeah, and we have done microtransactions in the past. As far as like the way that we did it, the conversion rate was not good. We never really figured out how to make reasonable income off of that, and partly it was because we didn't want to figure out how to make reasonable income off of it, because it just did not feel good to be designing games around that. No, that's when you start to get into these free to play industry terms like pain points, and stuff like that, where they're like, how do we like piss off the player just enough that they give us money, and just like make the experience worse, but not so bad they quit, but bad enough that they'll pay to make it good again. And that's just like, I hate that so much.
I do. I think it's like a lot of this has evolved, especially in the last like 5 or 10 years. I think you see the battle passes just all over the place now, and the reason is because that's one of the few shapes of essentially what is like a an in-app purchase that does tend to work better, because it's like you'll have an upgrade track that players who are playing for free are making progress on, right? So some portion of the battle pass is actually available to you just as a regular player, and then you pay to like get all the extra stuff that you can see, between the free stuff that you're getting. I feel like that's like the closest thing that works, pretty effectively, and doesn't have to.
It's almost like an escrow, because it's like as you play, you're progressing through the battle pass, and they're like, we're going to take all these items that you would have earned with the battle pass, and we're just going to hold on to them for you. So as you keep progressing, we just keep adding more and more things to this pile, and then eventually,
and we do that with Flop Rocket.
We did,
right?
The bank. Yeah, you banked extra coins.
You bank all those things that you're not allowed to spend, and then you can unlock. You can butter up to then get access to all those.
Exactly. We were way ahead of the curve on battle passes. Like we invented battle passes.
Yeah, this is back in 2015. I don't know.
Yeah,
whatever. Long time.
Yeah, no, I mean we did it for that. I mean, we basically independently came to the same kind of realization, which is like, if you have people purchase something, and then only from that point forward do they start gaining the benefits of it, then it doesn't matter kind of, it's basically like a harder sell, right? But if they're accruing some kind of a benefit that keeps growing over time to that purchase,
Mhm.
then it just kind of eventually makes them be like, you know what? I want to get that increased coin reward, but also I've got like 10,000 coins banked
Right.
already, and I can basically like redeem them by cashing in. Yeah,
But
so
even that all still has to like feel like it makes sense in the context of whatever the game's
That's the tricky part. You need enough.
system is,
You need
because
enough hooks. You know.
yeah, if you do that on a single player premium title, and then you're like, oh, here's this thing you're banking, and if you give us even more money, then
That
right,
makes sense.
if people will react to that very differently than they will if they're like, oh yeah, I get it. Once servers are being paid for and people get that,
Mhm.
it gives you new options for how you're generating revenue. It also means you need to generate a lot more revenue. So I'm not sure you win there, right? But
Yeah.
but at least gives you the option to do that. And the absence of it, when players are just like, if they end up, if in the mind of a player they just say you're just asking for money for no reason, right? Then that's where you know you're in trouble.
Well, this kind of dovetails nicely into the next question,
Go for it.
which comes from Kevin, who says, if an evil wizard cursed Butterscotch into only making Crashlands forever as a live service game or a yearly sequel, which would you choose? The wizard says either choice will result in enough success to sustain or possibly grow the studio. So it's basically take Crashlands 2.
Okay.
And just, that's the last game we ever make.
Mhm.
And it's a live service game now, somehow.
Or a sequel. It's like those
Or
are
a
the
yearly
choices.
sequel.
A yearly
Yeah,
sequel.
or to make and
or
publish
the
whenever.
alternative is, every year we are launching a sequel.
Well, I think I probably would go for the live service model if you have guaranteed success, frankly, because then you're building architecturally, you're building on like one big base of stuff, and you don't have to play the game with sequels that we discussed, I think, in the last episode about like how challenging it is to meet all player expectations from the original game while, providing enough differentiation from the first game that they're like, oh, this is a sequel versus being mad about the changes that you made. So I would
and it's coupled with the stress of a yearly whole ass launch.
Yeah, versus
A
like
whole ass launch
just
of a new
updating.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just updating. I mean, we did early access.
These
to
live
Levelhead.
service folks, they got it easy.
I mean, well, yeah.
But
I mean-
like the parts of game development that we hate the most are basically game launches, right? Like it's everything about it's setting up stores, it's doing marketing, it's doing all this kind of stuff.
It's
getting
not even
achievement set up. It's getting it's just doing. There's a million things that have to happen for a launch, like setting up pipelines for translation,
Exactly.
finding your business partners to do stuff.
Yeah, I was
If
set
we
up
could cut all of that out and we were just making games, even if it was just the one
same
game.
game.
Yeah, I would do a multiplayer shaped Crashlands thing for like a continuous dev model in that context. Again, if you could guarantee that it's successful, which is the huge if, but if that's
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
take care of-
obviously you got to do World of Woe Nope, and it's just
it's just an MMO
Crashlands,
now.
the MMO. You
Yep.
know, I don't really know. I've thought about this in the past of like, if we made an MMO, kind of what would be the thing, but I don't really know, like, as like, what would be the differentiating factor? What would be the hook or the thing that makes it standalone, or what makes it unique? I don't know if there's just really a market for this.
No, like,
You know?
well, I think in an MMO context, you have to do so much to gird the gameplay, right? To like make it possible to have all the gameplay exist, because you're building a planet basically, right? Versus session based is obviously like a way easier approach. Than
Well, and even like modern MMOs like World of Warcraft are arguably session based, where most of what you do in that game is instanced content that kind of has a constraint on it. So like they have their Mythic Plus system, which is like you go with a 5-person group into a dungeon and there's a timer and you try to beat the timer. They have a new game mode called Battleground Blitz, which has a 15-minute cap on it. It's a PvP game mode. But yeah, a lot of it is like you're in a really fancy lobby, which happens to be a giant world that you can walk
the
around
reality is
in.
like if you're making one now, I would you don't need to make the fancy world lobby. Frankly, like
that's an
do the
interesting
sessions.
question though, because there's that Fellowship game that I haven't really heard much about since maybe 6 months ago or something like that. But they're trying to take that Mythic Plus game mode from WoW and just make a whole game out of it, where you do just basically chill in a lobby and then you go to dungeons and there's nothing else to do. There's just the dungeons and then kind of tinkering with your character in the lobby. I'm curious I'm curious what'll happen with that.
Hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
because it's kind of a proof point of like, is this an actual like? It's like what we did with Levelhead versus Mario Maker, right? Where it's like, is this a genre? Or is it just something that this group of people does over there, and they'll always just
Right.
kind of stay over there?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I would have to agree. I think a live service game would be if you're guaranteed success, obviously go for the live
Yeah,
service
yeah.
game. I mean,
So much. I mean, thing is like that
because then
would
at
be
that
fun.
point, it's
You're
like,
just doing dev. Like,
yeah, if we didn't have to spend all day every day micromanaging and trying to optimize our in-game store, and like if according to the question you're guaranteed success, it's like, you know what, once a month we'll just release a couple of cosmetics or something, and then we're guaranteed success.
I
So
mean, even if we took it earnestly and like did everything we could to make it continuously bigger and better and all that kind of stuff,
that'd be
like
fun, you know?
it would be so much fun. Like we would actually get to have fun. Like we could bare minimum it and be like, well, we're guaranteed so or whatever. But
I'm
we
saying
wouldn't-
like we would still do all kinds of other stuff, but as far as like what we have to make money off of,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to spend all your time orchestrating that side of things.
Mhm.
You
I
can
mean, I would just
add
say,
new
like,
game modes and just do
yeah,
fun
if we're
stuff,
guaranteed success, I would just say it's a subscription and we call it, we're done. We did it, right? It's a subscription. We don't ever sell anything. We don't have an
There you go.
in-game store. It's just a
That's-
subscription.
That's the easiest way to do it, you know?
Well, which we did talk about this for Levelhead, because like Levelhead arguably should be a live service game. It's not. You just buy it and then
Mhm.
you're done. You have it forever and you don't pay it another dime.
Well, and I think it would have been if it had become popular, right? We would have been able to add stuff, either live service because it's just successful, so we can just keep doing stuff too. I mean, think of like Geometry Dash, right? Which has like on Steam alone has like 150,000 reviews or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like that game's still being updated because they are getting new players all the time,
Mhm.
and they have a huge player base, and so that. Like if you have certain kinds of games that are successful enough, they're effectively live service anyway. Like Terraria is another good example. Terraria is a live service game,
Right.
without a subscription, right? Because it has such a constant influx of new players that can support the continued development of the game, right? And that's really the dream, is just that you just have more players coming in all the time, so that you can everybody just buys the game, they're done.
The devs are supported. The devs
Devs
can
are
just
supported.
keep adding
game keeps
stuff to
getting
the
funded.
game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And the risk with a multiplayer game, or one where you have to deal with expensive servers, is that at some point, if it's a pay once model, then the influx of people coming in starts to get below the threshold of paying for the people who are still there, who are giving you a recurring cost every month, from all their server costs, but are not spending more money in the game.
Yep.
And so that's the thing we would need to avoid, right?
Mhm.
But it's just it's always like a level of success. That's what are your costs and how do you keep getting money coming in? Kind of a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always a bummer because like we always get questions from players and fans of our games where they're just like, oh, can you add this? Can you add this to the game? Can you add multiplayer? Can you add hats? Can you add a game mode? Can you add? It's like, we can do any of it. We can. Like, we're capable of doing any of those things. But if we haven't hit that threshold of success with a specific game, where we can just keep pouring time into it and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like if we could do that, we would love to do that.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
And it really sucks to tell people like, I want to do that, but we got to make another game. Like the cost benefit, we're still on the treadmill, right? Like the cost benefit just isn't there.
So if you're a gamer, you love playing games, and you wish that they always just had more stuff in them, you got to be voting for universal basic income. You got to be voting for universal healthcare, because those are I'm being completely real here. Like those are the things that allow this stuff to happen. Because the reason we can't is because if we don't find new ways to generate revenue for us and our team, then we don't have healthcare and we don't have houses. Or housing, more accurately, right? And we're out on the street, and that's it, right? And so it's too risky for us to do the stuff that we want to do and that everybody else wants us to do, right? Which is like, just to keep doing more cool stuff to the stuff that people already like, right? And so we have to stay on this trajectory. So there's a path forward there.
Or get the platforms to take a little less than 30%. I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
know,
10 I think would be fair.
10's fine. 10'd be
To be
great.
fair. Yeah.
That would be a tremendous boon for indies everywhere.
Yeah.
You know
The
what I mean?
mobile stores at least are now doing, 15.
It's like a graded thing. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So, which is like, it seems like that's still a little high in my opinion, but it's at the point where I'm like, I wouldn't fight this. I'm
Fine.
not even mad about it,
Yep.
But 30% is just truly insane. It's literally, if you took that whole thing away, we would have 50% more time to make games.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing about percentages that I think a lot of people don't think that hard about because they're not in that much of
Give
a
us
situation.
some math on how fucked we're getting by just general platform.
Well, so
stuff,
a
right?
basic way to think about it is like let's say you're losing half of your money.
Okay.
Because of platform fees and then taxes or whatever, right? So you make $100 and you're taking home 50, right? If you weren't losing half of your money, you'd be making twice as much money, right? Because percentages work as an inverse. And the lower your take home gets, the bigger every percentage you lose affects you, right? So if you're losing 98% of your money, you're taking home 2%, right?
Yep.
If you're suddenly then losing 99% of your money, only a 1% difference, right? No, you're taking home half as much money as you were before, right? So the further that dips down,
It's just so misleading.
yeah, the worse. It's like an exponential curve, basically, of how hard every little extra cut hits you.
Yeah, because
And
when it talks to when platform fees are always talked about in terms of like how much they're taking, not in terms of how much you're losing, right? Or how much you would have, which is relative to how much you would have had or could have if that amount wasn't being taken away.
Yeah. So you see really good sales. Maybe you launch a game, you get 100,000 off of it. No, you didn't. You got 70, and then you're gonna pay taxes on that, and now you're down to 55, 60.
Yeah.
You're almost down to half, just like right away.
Yeah. So if you instead got all of that back, it would be literally doubling. It would be doubling or at minimum 50%, depending on how it all comes together, right? But like it's adding half as much again to twice as much runway, right?
Yeah.
Or personnel, or actually payments to the people who are making the stuff, right? So that they can more safely make the stuff that they're making.
Yeah. This is where like I'm envious of, you say, like, like a battle.net situation where they just sell direct to consumer. But that also means that they have to figure out the taxes of selling in all these different countries.
Yeah. That's honestly why the 15% to me, I'm like, still fair, because the complexity of dealing with international
there's
taxes and shit, like
there is a value add to the platforms.
a huge value add. It's just
International.
that they already figured it out.
But it's a fixed cost.
Exactly.
It's a fixed cost.
In a sense that, like, if they figure out taxes for Argentina, they don't have to redo that on every game. Like, they've got that sorted, and it's a process, and it's handled, right?
It's a flat cost to them that they figured out, and then they make it a proportional cost to everybody doing stuff on the platform, right? So it costs them some flat amount of money, say, I don't know, $50,000 a year, to like solve that problem, right? If you take all this, like how much it costs for them to figure it out and like have the systems in place, they already did it and now they're maintaining it, right? And so maybe a few $100,000 a year for a major platform, right?
Right. So this is where this all comes in. All right. So there's this number reported this year that Valve has a profit per employee of $3.5 million. So as a company, if they have, if they only have 10 employees, they're making $35 million of profit. That's not revenue. It's $19 million of revenue per employee. $3.5 million of profit. So yeah, I mean, it's too much. It's a bit much.
Maybe quit taking so fucking much. I think maybe you got.
Well, and this is the final kind of funny thing about it is they will take less if you make a lot of money.
yeah.
When it's
Once you
basically if they think there's a risk of you leaving the platform to avoid their fees, and you're making a huge amount of money for them,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
when
So I think
It's
I
still not
can't
for
remember what
you
the cutoff
at that
is. I
point.
think it's like $1 million and then 20
no, it's
million.
just 20 million.
or
20
something.
million is where the
Is
first
at the start? Yeah.
yeah is where the first.
That's
it's
when
like
they start to take
25%, and then
less.
50 million is 20 or something. I don't know. It's been a while, so they also may have changed. But when they first announced them, it was something like 20 million, and then 50 to knock you down thresholds.
Yeah.
And they clearly did that exactly so that the large AAA studios that do have the revenue to be able to produce their own stores, as much as everybody complained about all the different storefronts, they did that so that all those companies would think twice about it. Because if you're like, well, I guess if it's like 20%, whatever, it's probably fine, versus having to roll your own store and stuff. It's just that it's so annoying. It's just so
Yeah, rolling your own store is expensive, definitely.
It's
right?
not the same discipline as making games. It's just a
No,
whole
it's
other
very
thing,
different.
Yeah. It's different.
You basically
But-
need to just become a different company.
Yeah, but
to
the real
do-
challenge isn't making your own store. Again, that's challenging and very expensive. But it's not like if you're a game and you're making $20 million a year, or let's say $50 million a year, and you're trying to save some money because that Steam is otherwise taken from you, right? That balance that's left of what you could be saving, that's starting to add up. That's really, really starting to add up if you didn't have to pay any of those fees, right? Because now you're talking tens of millions of dollars. Can you make your own store for tens of millions of dollars? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
can
yeah.
absolutely do that.
Mhm.
Can you get people to use it?
Probably not.
Absolutely not. And that's where the crux of it comes in, right? It's like,
Yep.
is Steam actually didn't have to do that. And I'm not 100% sure why they did it, except that there was that moment in time where all the other AAA studios were like, let's make our own launcher and take our
everyone
stuff
was
off
doing
of
it.
Steam.
Yeah.
So everyone started doing it. And so at the time, I don't think Steam had the confidence to really believe that, like, oh no, like once all these huge games leave,
Yeah.
they're going to start taking our customers away. I think now they know that no,
They got it in the bag.
nobody's competing with us. Nobody can compete with us. And so we didn't have to have done this, but I think at the time they didn't know they didn't have to have done that to keep that from happening. Cause there was like there's like a 5-year period where suddenly everybody had their own launcher.
It was like
and
every 4 months there was like a new,
Just a new one?
Ubisoft.
It was
EA
like
still
kicked off.
launched.
Well, yeah, I guess it wasn't kicked off by Epic. Epic was actually
like
one
a
of the
little bit
later
Yeah, a little
ones.
later.
I think
yeah.
EA may have been the first one. To
EA
the
is one of the
party.
first ones, yeah.
Yeah, and then but it just kept going, and it's yeah.
Eventually, these games are all ending up on Steam. Like,
Yeah, well, I think because even Blizzard stuff is now on Steam, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
the new Diablo game.
Yep.
I think it was Diablo 4 was on Steam.
Mhm.
I don't remember if they have anything else on there.
Well, and like, are there some backroom deals, between these huge
Probably.
companies and Steam to have a small cut?
Oh, come on, of course. I mean, you hear about
Undoubtedly.
it's like you hear about all the stuff with like Spotify and Apple and like
Yeah.
all of the large entities who have billions of dollars end up having some conversation with the platforms who distribute, because the reality is that the cost to distribute their shit is just not very high. And so at some point, that percent, Adam, like you were saying, if you're making like $50 million or something, and someone's taking 30% of it, that chunk of change is so big.
It's insane.
So big that you could do something with it. You can do your own store. You can do all this stuff, and so they end up getting platforms get a little nervous.
You can
And they
spend tens of millions. You can buy every YouTuber, every single popular YouTuber.
Yeah.
That's enough money to like buy them for a month. Where you're like, all you're going to talk about is how great this service is.
Right.
Like, it's so much money that you could. And again, the fact though that given how much money that is that they're saving or could have been saving, that nobody could make that successful is hilarious. I think for two reasons. One is it tells you something about Steam truly is a monopoly. That's how that works, right? But the other one is that the way that people think about money isn't like that, right? Because if the business people in charge were like thinking about it in that way, they'd be like, okay, we'll save this amount of money, so we'll invest like this proportion of it into actually building the thing that we're trying to make to do it, and we're going to invest like a similarly huge fraction, amount of money into making this thing go. Which, to Epic's credit, they did do.
They did
Epic
do.
is the only one who did.
They're still
this.
doing. They're still burning money on that bonfire every week.
Yep,
crazy.
just throwing money at it, and that's what would be required to make it be successful. The fact that even then it still isn't is pretty
Impressive.
remarkable.
Yeah.
Which is like they
It
are
doesn't-
successful as a store because they have Fortnite, right? So
well, I think that's the problem. Is there's a resource trap that they're in, which is this is like the thing that happens to like a country that suddenly finds gold or oil or something like that, where their entire economy reorients around that one thing.
Mhm.
And then if that one thing goes away or gets threatened or sanctioned or whatever, then nobody in that country has the expertise to like diversify into other industries because they've just spent a whole generation kind of concentrating in one thing. And then it's very difficult to then kind of like rebuild after that one thing falls apart, right? So where Epic is with Fortnite is like they've got this it's kind of similar to what happened with like Blizzard and World of Warcraft, is like their pace of releasing games really slowed down because all of their talent and thought, work, and investment just went into this one thing, and everything else kind of suffered. So like for Epic, as long as they're still making all their money off of Fortnite, they don't need their store to have the features that Steam has, because that's not really where their money's coming from, you know? Because it's been very strange to see how fast they change Fortnite and how slowly their store front has gained any real useful features. Like they're clearly just doubling down on the thing that's making money, and they're just kind of trickling the funds and the time into.
And you do see this for everybody who's investing in any diversified thing, like watching like Netflix go into games, right? It's the same thing where they just like they're so tentative about that next thing versus their main thing that they're all just they're making it so that those things can't really be successful, right? Because you're right that Epic is throwing money at the problem of like, how do we make the store successful? So they're like making it so that every indie game in the universe has been free for a week on the store, including, you know, ours.
But it was chump change for Epic.
Yeah, it didn't cost. It didn't cost them anything, but something, because they had their exclusives that were very expensive, right? And so which they have kind of done away with. But their approach was to say, let's just get all of the games over here. Which again, you do have to do. You have to, otherwise, what's the point of your store, right? But they didn't make it so that they didn't try to solve discovery. So now you'll go to the store because you hear there's a game there for free, or because it's only available there, and you get it there. Once you've done that, are there systems to keep surfacing games to you to make it easy to find games that you would like, for you to do all the kind of stuff that you need for a properly functioning storefront, which only Steam still to this day has done?
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Nobody else has done it.
It also takes time to do. That's the reality. Like the problem is like you're competing. I think we talk about with dealing with entering into like a genre space with a new game nowadays. Let's say you want to make a crafting game. You're competing against like Terraria, which has just been in active development for a decade and some change. And so when you arrive, you are not compared against nothingness. You're compared against something that's been there, a juggernaut that has been lurking there for like a decade, right? And so it's the same with the stores.
For a decade.
Exactly. It's the same with
Steam is the Terraria of stores.
Yeah, they're the oldest one on PC in terms of like that, direct download stuff, and they've been doing it the best for the longest. So if you're trying to catch up to that, you cannot. That's the reality. You cannot catch up in terms of features. You cannot catch up in terms of content libraries or else, which does kind of mean that they get to do whatever they want in terms of.
Well, I think Epic had the right idea in that they had a gimmick. Yeah, they're like, okay, every week there's a free game, and it's not like a game that would normally be free. It's a game that you would normally have to pay for, and it's just free for that week. So like we did that with Crashlands on the Epic Store. What do we get? 2 million downloads? 3 million?
Like 3 million, yeah.
Yeah. Like people, this was kind of in the earlier days of the Epic Store. People were just flocking over there to get their free game every week.
Yeah.
But then
I was every week. I'd be like, what's the free game on Epic? And I would go get it. Yeah.
Yeah. But most of the time, that was games that had been on Steam for a long time.
Yep.
And it's basically just kind of like rebuilding your Steam library over there.
Which is smart, right? Because like they needed to do that in order to bring.
Yeah, which on the one hand is smart, but on the other hand, if you already have the game,
there's no benefit. Like there's nothing to be gained for you to go get it again for free over there.
But especially the kind of people who play lots of indie games, who who I think of as a true gamer, not to start that fight, right? But as a person who plays like lots of games, lots of kinds of games, right? And a person who does that, even if they don't own those games, like so if they got their Steam library, they got their pirate library that they've games that they've just stolen, right? They've played a bunch of stuff. So the chances of like if I go over to Epic and they've got their free game of the week, and is that a game that I have either not played or decided I don't want to play, right? Like the chances of it being a game that I haven't played and want to play, if I'm the kind of person who would give a shit about that game at all, right, is basically zero. And so
that's where the exclusives came in, right? But the reality is like it is so expensive. It's so expensive to do.
It's expensive and people hate it. Because now it's not, hey, I get something for free. It's now, hey, this is the only, I have to leave the place I want to be to come get this thing that I want, right?
Yeah.
And so
Steam's here to stay. You know, there's no fighting that. It's just like, man, it would be nice if some of the terms were a little renegotiated every, I don't know, 10 fucking years because things have changed. Like, it's the same terms. Same terms for all of us as it's been since.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Gabe Newell just got asked to go to Congress to talk about violence in video games. So,
don't even go down that route.
You know, where it's 2000 again. Guys, we're going back in time.
Yeah, everything is so stupid right now. But it would be nice if one smart thing could happen, which would be Steam was like, hey, if you're making under $1 million a year, but do the same thing that the mobile stores had to do because of monopoly pressure, because they didn't do it out of the goodness of their hearts, right? Even though in the long term it is the smart move, because studios like ours are hanging on by a thread. Gotten lucky enough that we've managed to hang on longer than most, even, right?
We thickened the thread a little bit.
We thickened the thread a little bit, but we're still just one bad launch, one bad decision, one mistake, one just surprise away from the studio being gone, right? And so it's in every platform's best move to be like, hey, if you're making under this sum amount, like $1 million, something significant, basically roughly 0% is what we take from you, right? Because we're investing in the future of your success. You know,
it's not in their best interest because people are still making games as just like, I can't tell you how many posts I see in like the game dev subreddits and the indie gaming subreddits and stuff like that of people who are like, I've been working nights and weekends making my game, blah, blah, blah. I finally released it on Steam. You know, I managed to make 80K or 90K or, you know, whatever, which is, like for a solo project and stuff like that, like that's solid, right? And there's just hundreds and hundreds of these just all the time. Like the number,
still, even all of that, because my point is that those same developers, right? Because your first game, as a solo dev, as a new indie team, as someone in the industry, right? The first game you're a part of, in the current state of the industry, is likely to also be your last, because you can't make enough money to live off of it unless you're doing it as a hobby, in which case each game is still small. You can't really build on what you did the last time, right? You don't have time. You don't have the resources. If you can get it, if you like being able to build upon success is what allows you to become the kind of studio that can make something that people will buy en masse for $50 a pop or whatever, right?
You're saying at some point in time in the future, basically.
At some point in time in the future, like so, as in the idea is that if you can keep an indie studio from collapsing on average, just a little bit longer, the chances of you having more studios, because like any one given studio still isn't going to do that, right? But the chances of some more studios coming out and making $100 million, right, goes up enormously. So that to me it seems like there's no way to know because there's no numbers you could look at to make that. But
like all I'm saying is Valve was making $3.5 million per employee profit. So all like what we're asking for, and I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate, right? Like what we're asking for is, hey Steam, what if you just made less per employee? And in the long run,
you might not even make less in the long run.
Yeah. Well, in the long run, it might pay off, but in the short run, it definitely won't. Because in the short run, you'll definitely just have less money. Valve. So would you like?
But how much less money will they have? Because I don't believe at all that it's like games like even ours, but certainly because we're more successful than probably 95% of games on Steam, right? And even if you get like going up to that threshold, like there's 95% of games. Do those 95% of games that aren't making very much money on Steam, does that 30%? If they dropped it, if they made half as much,
you're 100% right. Yeah, you're 100%.
Does it add up to what that 5% is doing? Like, how big of a proportion? So, like, if you just took half of all that away, would Valve be being like, oh, now we only make $18 million per employee instead of 18.5? Like, is that the change that happens, right?
Yeah,
Or
it's
is it
definitely
like,
gonna be
we
top
have half
heavy.
as much money, right?
Yeah, when you have a Silk Song that has 500,000 concurrent players,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know,
Those top ones, and because like all of entertainment media, which includes games, follows that same trajectory. It's all on a power curve. The top things make literally hundreds to thousands times as much as the next thing down the ladder, right? And as you move down that ladder, it's like it's a tenth again, a fifth, a half, a third, right? Whatever. You're dropping really rapidly as you go from the top. And so proportionally, the top small percentage of things make almost all of the revenue. And so
Adam's
if you
point is
stopped taking everything away from the stuff on the lower one, do you actually lose anything in a meaningful way? Especially when you just are making so much.
yeah,
When you're
I'd be
making
curious
so
to
much
see
money.
the breakdown. Of course, Valve is a private company, so they don't release
Yeah, so we can't see.
anything that they don't want to. Right?
Yeah, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's actually the case that like half of the revenue comes from the bottom 95% of games.
I'm
right?
assuming, as with most things, it's some kind of 90-10 rule or something like that, or 80-20, where it's like the top 20% of games make up 80% of the revenue, and then everybody else is just kind of
flopping about,
flopping around, fighting for scraps.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll never know, but yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Obviously, I agree with you. It's great.
Yeah. But I think to me, like, it's one of those things that like it just makes sense from just not. Nobody needs as much as Valve is taking, right? So that's just.
I think the reality
even
is,
if you take
your
away
point-
that part, and people are like, "Oh, I have a right to take everybody's money." If we just, even if we assert that that's true, I still don't really believe that they come out ahead by.
Yeah,
doing
you're
it this
saying
way.
it probably actually is better optimized overall to allow for more games to more studios of a smaller scale to exist for
To
a bit
survive.
longer, so that they can
Yeah.
produce those occasional breakout hits, which is where you harvest like tremendous amounts of money from.
Yeah, because every percent
That
that you
makes
take
sense.
away from like our revenue as a small studio today decreases the likelihood that we're here for some proportion of days into the future, right? And at some point, as that cuts in, like there's a game now that doesn't get made.
You're saying
But
they
also
could grow the whole pie.
But there's
Grows the whole
also an
pie, yeah.
assumption that the attention that people have can expand to accommodate more breakout hits, right? And it's like, well, like,
Yeah, maybe.
because so Hades 2 just suddenly announced. Yeah, I do want to mention this before we wrap up the episode, because this is so bad.
I felt so bad. So we had all those games that moved their launch because Silk Song was suddenly happening.
They're like, we'll move to the end of September because nothing's going on.
And then fucking Hades 2 is like 1.0 launch into September. And I don't know. Seth came into Discord was just like, man.
It's just people had used the term indie apocalypse before. This is an indie apocalypse because like any indies trying to launch in September had a totally clear opening, and Team Cherry just suddenly is like, actually you don't. Just like 2 weeks beforehand. And people are like, okay, end of September.
Let's move it 2 weeks.
Which is bumping up right up against the autumn sale.
Yes.
Which is already risky.
Already risky, but they're like, well, I mean, otherwise then we got to wait till after the autumn sale, and people have spent all their money, and then now we're into like November, but then we're, and it just gets crazy. So people are like, okay, end of September, that's the best we can do. And then fucking Hades comes in, and they're like, Hades 2 in 2 weeks, get ready. What do you get?
Come on,
Screwed.
guys.
Yeah, it is literally, it's like an indie apocalypse. It's just a massacre out there because these two studios just decided we're not going to market. We're not going to give anybody any lead up time. We're just going to essentially shadow drop. Shadow drop 2 nukes right in the middle of September. Just blow up every indie studio.
This is the kind of thing I'm talking about is like a single thing can basically like completely derail a launch, right? And because of how hard it is to make money in the first place, and then how much everybody takes from us. Even like we managed to get a little bit, and they're like, I'm just going to take 30% of that, right? They take so much of what like little you can manage to scrounge up that everybody's constantly on the edge of, because like all these companies right now that are these indie studios that are launching these games in the middle of this little mini apocalypse, right? Like maybe that'll all turn out fine for all of them. That's possible, right? Maybe for a few of them or some subset of them, this launch, so they needed it to be successful, and now it won't be, and now that studio is gone. And maybe the difference between them being able to keep going and not is if Steam was taking 15 instead of 30%, right? Like that. So my point is like that's where we live, because we're all living on the edge all the time.
It wouldn't
of
hurt
being over
for them to be able to take home more money. That's for
no.
sure. Yeah.
And it might be the difference between that team still existing after their launch and getting to make a next thing. And it's again, it's a statistical thing. That's not going to be true for everybody. It's not going to be true for most people, right? That because especially the difference between taking 15 and 30 is a huge difference, but proportional to what you would have had isn't, 50% more. It's whatever, 30% more. Right?
Mhm.
It's just
Like a third more money.
It's
or
weird,
something
right?
Zany. Yeah.
But it's significant enough that like you're maybe adding a month to a runway, maybe you're adding a couple months, maybe you're adding, depending on the scale of things, you might be adding. You'll be adding weeks to years, right? Of of runway.
Yeah, we're
And
seeing it
that
with like the
can make a
tariffs,
difference.
right? Where it's like even with a 10% tariff, if your company was making a 4% profit margin or something, you can't
Yeah, it's gone.
function anymore. Like that 10%
Yep.
is a huge difference, right? So you have to change everything and try to figure out how to accommodate it, fire some people to try to get your costs down. Like there's no good outcome of that, So yeah, input costs are a huge problem, and ours is
So I'm just
a-
saying the whole industry would be more resilient now and into the future if all these platforms took a smaller cut for those at the bottom of the rung. And the bottom is almost everybody. And I don't
but
believe
not almost
I just,
all the money. So I think it'd be fine for them.
exactly, that's it.
Yeah.
But I just don't believe that even if you took like the bottom 95% of all games and all game developers and all publishers putting games out, and you just said, you know what, we're not going to take anything. We'll just let you be on the platform and we'll eat that cost, right? I don't think they'd lose much. I really don't think they would.
Well, there's a regressive. It's like a regressive tax.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's just as short-sighted and stupid as a regressive tax, right? It's just
is the people who need the money the most don't get to keep it. The people who have plenty, they get to keep all of it.
it's the indie development poverty trap, right? Where you just can't quite get out above it, and everything is designed to keep pushing you. So you're just in this constant
just
struggle.
keep you stuck on the treadmill.
Yeah.
Things would be a little different if we were able to keep that 30 because we would have taken home 42% more money.
Yeah,
which is a lot.
It's a shitload more.
Over the years. So, anyways, we'll have to get off our soapbox, unfortunately, because we got to wrap up the episode. We'd like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Sampa Acosta, for putting the podcast together, and thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. If you would like to get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate, and links to the podcast archives. And if you haven't yet, go over to Steam, Google Play, App Store, the Switch, eShop, Xbox. We have games everywhere. Okay. Just
did you
pick
mention
up
Epic? We're also on Epic.
We are, but people don't buy games there.
Which is unfortunate because they have the best cut. They have the best rate in the business.
We don't go. People don't go there.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that one. Pick up copies of our games: Crashlands, Levelhead, Crashlands 2. And if you've already got them, give us a good review on those. We'd appreciate it, and it helps the games, algorithmically. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.